Afternoon, Year 4. It's Mrs. Passmore then for history today. And today we're going to be looking at Anglo Saxons moving on from the Roman era and comparing how their ideas about laws and justice compare to the modern British ideas and to the Romans. So we're going to be using growth mindset today, applying some of our knowledge from last week. In your topic books, could you write today's date, Tuesday, the 2nd of March, and today's title, Crime and Punishment in the Anglo-Saxon Era. And if you're going to aim for bronze today, you're going to be thinking about and looking at what happens to Anglo-Saxons when they're on trial. If you're going to go for silver, you're going to think about the modern British person and how their trial might be different to an Anglo-Saxon's. And if you're gold, you're going to play the role of the jury in order to deliver the verdict. So, first of all then, going to watch a short video clip about the Anglo-Saxons to set the scene. So I'm just going to show you my screen with you to the video. Here we go.
But on the night of the 3rd of July, you did me nothing intentional naughtiness.
as you can see then, although still horrific ways of punishing people, they are different to the Roman times. Okay. So, the Romans to the Saxons then. The Romans invaded Britain in 43 AD, almost 400 years before the end of the Roman rule in Britain. And at the end of the Roman rule in Britain in AD 410 was the beginning of the Anglo Saxon period, which lasted for about the next 650 years. So, some changes then. Germanic tribes had been invading Britain for some time, and without Roman protection, they proved to be a formidable force against the Brits. These invaders are known to us as the Anglo Saxons because the two biggest invading tribes were the Angles and the Saxons. Other invaders were the Jutes, Franks, and Frisons. They came from the modern countries of Germany, Holland, and Denmark. So, the Anglo-Saxon justice system. Many laws we have in Britain today are not that different from the laws of Anglo-Saxons. However, the punishments are considerably different. There were no prisons to send criminals to, so punishments were designed to be a huge deterrent to those thinking of breaking the law, and they were often pretty brutal. The different Anglo-Saxon kings and kingdoms had their own laws and punishments. So because there were no prisons, they had to come up with ways to stop people from breaking the law and committing crimes. So different villages and communities were divided into tivins made up of 10 men who were all responsible for each other's behaviour. If a man had committed a crime, it was up to the other men in that group to bring him to court. If they did not bring them to court, they would face punishment themselves. And by having this rule meant that everyone in that group would follow that rule because they didn't want to face the punishment. When a village wanted to find a criminal, the people would call upon everyone else in the community to find them. This was called a hue and cry. So, here are some of the typical Anglo-Saxon punishments. So they do stoning, where they would literally get big rocks and stones and throw them at the person who is being punished. There might be paying a fine. If a person could not afford their fine, they would be put into slavery where they would have to earn their money. They might have hung people on this sort of hanging device. Drowning people, like on the video where they connected their hands and their feet together by rope and would push them into the river, believing that God would almost make the choice on whether they were innocent or guilty. They might be whipped here. Mutilations, cutting off parts of body parts. Branding with a hot red iron. Put in the stocks for everyone to be laughed at and to be humiliated by. Or exile, being sent away. So most punishments then were carried out in public to make an example of that guilty person. This was done to humiliate the person who had committed the crime, but also to deter others from wanting to commit the crime. So in theory, if you saw someone being branded with a hot iron because they stole from a shop, if you were someone who used to steal from a shop, you'd probably be put off by stealing next time because you wouldn't want to be branded by a hot iron either. So rather than punishing the people in secret, they do it out in the public for everybody to see. So, the weirguld then was a payment system used in Anglo-Saxon times to settle disputes or arguments between a criminal and the victim or the victim's family. Weirguld would be paid if someone was killed, and the amount depended on how important the victim was. Okay, so if a free man is killed, 100 shillings were to be paid. 300 shillings for a rich nobleman, but only 20 for a slave. So our first activity today then is looking at this system. So different parts of the body would be given a value. For example, if you lost a finger in a fight, your attacker would have to pay you compensation. And you can use this chart in order to solve them. So let's have a look at your activity. So over here then, you've got a broken tooth would be 1 shilling, a broken nose would be 10 shillings, a lost finger would be 6 shillings, a lost thumb would be 20 shillings, a lost foot would be 50 shillings, a dislocated shoulder would be 30 shillings, and a blinded eye would be 50. And what you need to have a go at doing, so you'll pause the video in a minute, is look at group 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6 and decide what the total amount owed would be. So for group 1, for example, you have suffered 6 broken teeth. So it's 1 shilling per tooth. So at the moment, you need to pay 6 shillings. But you've also got a broken nose, which is 10 shillings. So that would be 16 shillings. Plus a dislocated shoulder, which is 30. 30 add 16 is 46 shillings. So group 1 would have to owe 46 shillings. Have a go at trying to do group 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6. Pause the video year 4, have a good go and then come back and join me for the rest of today's video. Okay, welcome back. Hopefully then you got on well with all of those. Now, Anglo-Saxon trials. In Anglo-Saxon Britain, people accused of crimes had to go to court and be tried for their crimes just like courts in Britain today. So a jury would decide if a defendant or a person accused of the crime was innocent or guilty and decide on a suitable punishment for them. The defendant could choose oath keepers who would swear they were innocent, a bit like a witness today. If the defendant insisted they were innocent and/or a decision could not be reached, sometimes there'd be a trial by ordeal through which the Anglo-Saxons believed that God would decide if that person was guilty or not, and the defendant could choose which ordeal to go with. Here are the 3 main types then. There'd be the cold water ordeal. The person would have their hands and feet tied with rope, be given a drink of holy water and then thrown into an icy cold lake. If they sank to the bottom, they were innocent. If they floated, they were guilty. The hot water ordeal. The person would have to plunge their hand into a pot of boiling hot water and retrieve a stone from the bottom. The hand would be bandaged for 3 days and then checked. If it was healing without infection, the person was deemed innocent. But if it was infected, they were guilty. And the third one was the iron bar ordeal, where the person had to carry a glowing hot iron bar for 9 feet. They then had their hand bandaged for 3 days. Like the hot water ordeal, if it was healing without infection, the person was deemed innocent. But if it was infected, they were guilty. So all of these punishments are quite severe. Have a think. Do you think that there were less crimes committed during these times than there are today because their punishments are so severe? Now, your second activity today then is to look at a scenario card and decide what you think the different sets of people would do. If you're going for bronze, you're going to think about what the Anglo-Saxons would think and write your answers down for that one. And then stop and move on to the next one if you're doing bronze. If you're going to do silver, you're going to write about what the Anglo-Saxons would do, followed by what you think a modern British person would do. And then stop and move on to the next card. If you're going to go for gold, you need to do the bronze, the silver, as well as what you think as the jury you would decide to do. Is the fairest decision to be made? Which one do you agree with? Okay, so these are your scenario cards. And I'm going to read them to you. So if you want to go back and listen to me read them to you again, you can when you come to your activity. So case study 1. A man has killed a woman because he was angry. What should we do? Well, the Anglo-Saxon people. The man should pay a weir-guild fine of 200 shillings to the woman's family and then be free to go. So if you're doing bronze, have a think about if you think this is fair. Modern British people. The man should go to prison for 25 years. And again, have a think. Do you agree with this? Do you think this is the best punishment for this man? And if you're going for gold, think about both of those and then think about what you think should happen. What would your option be? I'm just going to skip through to my example. So here is my example for the case study 1. As an Anglo-Saxon, I think that he should be made to pay the family the money to help them support the family. 200 shillings is a lot of money, so I think this would stop him committing another murder. That's my opinion. You might have a different opinion. As a modern British person, I believe that him going to prison for 25 years is fair, as he's lost the lady's life, so he should have a miserable life too. Also, if he was in prison, he wouldn't be able to kill anyone else. And then my gold answer, as the jury, some would feel that neither sentence is correct, as why should he continue to live when he has killed someone? so perhaps he should be imprisoned for life. However, other people may feel that at this point in his life he has accepted what he has done is wrong and that he has worked through his anger problems to become a better man and should therefore be able to continue to live as normal as he has worked hard to show he is remorseful. Now, the great thing with this lesson is it's your opinions. As long as your opinions are backed by a reason, then your reason is valid. Okay, so I'm going to go back now and read you case study 2, 3, and 4 because you can choose which one you would like to do. You might be able to get 2 or 3 done today. So, case study 2. A child has stolen a sheep. What should we do? Anglo Saxon people. The child should have his hand chopped off. Talk about the reasons why you think this should happen to the child. So, he's stolen a sheep. Should his hands automatically be chopped off? Have a think. If you're a modern British people, the child should be given a warning by the police to not do it again. Do you think that would prevent him from stealing a sheep in the future, or does it need to be a little bit harsher? Have a think about your suggestions. And if you're the jury, think about and listen to both sides. So write your opinion for both sides, and then think about what you think should actually happen. Okay? And then this is a child who's stolen a sheep. So it's not an adult, it's just a child. Case study 3. A woman has been accused of being a witch. People say that she has cursed her village with an illness, as she is the only person not to fall ill. What should we do? The Anglo-Saxon people think that the woman should do a trial by ordeal by being tied and thrown into the lake. If she sinks to the bottom, she's innocent, and if she floats, she's guilty and will be killed. If you're a modern British person, have a think. There's no evidence. She should be free to go. Do you agree with that one? And if you're the jury, have a think about both sides of your argument that you have written and decide what you would do. What do you think should happen to that lady? And your final case study is a child is naughty at the local market and upsets his mother. What should we do? The Anglo-Saxon people think the child should be whipped. Okay, do you agree that the child should be whipped? If so, why? And if not, why? If you're the modern British person, the child should be spoken to sternly by his mother and they should talk about why he should not behave like that. Is that how you think it should be dealt with? Write down your answer. And if you're the jury, have a think about both arguments and come up with your overruling decision. What do you think should happen and why? There's quite a bit to do there, Year 4. You need to think about both sides and then come up, if you're doing gold, for what the jury should do. Now, I advise you to choose 2 case studies and write your answers for those because it will take you a rather long time to do all 4 in detail. If you want to do all 4, feel free to have a go. And then for your plenary, I want you to think about what you notice are similar and different between the Anglo-Saxon and the Roman justice system. Okay, what do you think is similar? Both of their ordeals and punishments are definitely severe and more severe than what we have nowadays. Do you think there's a good reason or do you think that's not a good reason? Have a think and piece together some ideas ready for next lesson. Have a good go at that, Year 4, and I will speak to you later. Bye.